Hello, this is Brian from Tavaran Games here with another few updates to Dungeon Maker. So I've added in an asset editor to allow you to change the way the game looks for you, as well as did some tinkering to the river and coastline placer, allowing them to link up automatically, and then did some changes to the UI to make it a little bit easier to navigate. So the first change, the asset editor, came as a suggestion from some of the early reviewers on Steam. They wanted to be able to put in custom assets that the DM adds to the game that their players can see, similar to how enemies and NPCs are done. If we look at the enemies and NPCs, you have your custom picture of the enemy that the DM sets and is on the map, and then that is automatically transferred to the players so they don't need to have anything installed. Now, the limitation of this is there is a network buffer in the networking protocols I'm using for Unity that limits the amount of data that can be transferred per second between players. And when I was syncing up these enemy pictures, especially these larger ones, I was frequently hitting that buffer limit. So I have to split up the data into smaller chunks and space it out. So this enemy, for example, already takes a second to transfer its image data to the players, and the huge enemies take 2 seconds to transfer that data. So the more enemies and NPCs you have, the longer it takes for those images to load on the player's side. Now, if we added in custom assets as well that have to be transferred, with some of the images being the same size as huge enemies, suddenly it'll take 20, 30 seconds or more for a scene to actually load on the player's side properly. And I didn't want them to take any longer. It already takes a while for the enemies, as mentioned. So instead, I decided to take inspiration from Minecraft, where you've got custom resource packs in Minecraft where it just edits the way your game looks. I've added that in here with the asset editing page. So let's click on that. So we have this new UI screen, the asset editor. Now you have the instructions here. So edit assets only appear in your game. The dungeon, let's say you're the dungeon master. They will appear for you. If you want the players to see the game the same way you do, all you have to do is copy your asset contents, send it to them, and have them install it in their asset folder. Now I've added a button here that will automatically open the asset folder for you. So you can see these are ones I've replaced just to test out the system. So you could just copy the contents of this, send it to your players, have them install it in their or paste it into their assets folder, and they will then see the game the way you do. So how does this system actually work? Well, we have this screen opens up. It shows you all the assets that can be changed in the game. Now this only works for assets that use a single sprite. Anything that's animated, like the torches, campfires, water tiles, because they have multiple sprites, this system doesn't work for them, as well as walls it doesn't work for because those ones hot swap their sprites. You're not actually replacing the link to the sprite image in the game. Instead, what you're doing is you're replacing the texture live in game time. So it only works for the static items. But that means most of the floors and all of the furniture, or most of the furniture, the decor and stuff can be changed. So you get this menu here. It shows up in the grid. Now I'm using the Unity's automatic grid system, and unfortunately it tries to resize everything to the same size. So tall or wide assets, so like this single bed, which is quite tall, they end up a little bit stretched in this view. But you can still see all of the items and understand what they are to replace them. So when you want to replace one, so let's say we want to replace this coin hoard, you click on the asset, and you get the file menu comes up. And I replaced the buttons with scroll bars just to make it a little easier to navigate. I finally found out how to do that in Unity. And you'll see whatever folder you're in the images. So these are actually the assets from my original artwork of the game that I set up before. So when you click on one of the images, it'll show you the new image here of what it's going to change to and the old image on the left. So you can see, so if you want to change it to that, it would show you and it'll give you a preview. But this doesn't change it until you hit the import image button, at which point that image is then replaced. So if we go to the assets folder again, there is the new one with the correct name. Now what the game is actually doing is in the UI and the game objects, when you load a scene, they're going to check to see, is there an asset in that folder that matches my name? And if so, use that texture instead. So if you don't like that texture anymore, we can just go back to the folder. Let's delete this. Just delete it. Now, it won't be immediate. It's on the scene load. So let's return to the main menu and go back to the asset editor, and you can see we're back to the original default image. Any images that can't find a replacement folder, just use the in-game default. So if we let's actually replace that again, just so we can see that one. I suck at letters. There we are. Import that again. There it is. So return to the main menu. So let's actually edit a map. So let's go back to the Orchard, Nils Hamlet, which I've shown a million times, but it's got a lot of items already placed in it. And you can see some of the assets. So this is one we replaced with the old school image, and you can see why I redrew everything. I replaced the balls and crates, and let's go in here to the decorations and the treasures, and you see there's the coin hoard. In the UI, the image has been replaced, and the placeable objects are replaced. Now for these larger ones, the point where the actual placeable point sometimes ends up off for the larger images, but you can still place it around, you'll see where it is. I just have to fix that. But yeah, if we go to the kitchen food, you saw that that chicken's been done, and we can place the new chicken wherever we want. Yeah, so you'll see that. And then again, if you want the players to see the map the way you do, like that, you just have to send it, copy the files and send it to them, and they'll then see the changes. So that is the asset editor now. There's still a few things I need to clean up a little bit, but it's working pretty well, and will be live on Steam shortly. So the next update, the the river and coastline freeform we showed in the previous update. So let's just go to a campaign map I sort of drew up earlier. So we have this campaign map, and if you remember on the campaign map editor, we have the freeform river placer, which will do its best to link 2 points with a randomized river. Sometimes it misses some spots, but it does its best and does a pretty good job most of the time. Way too many lakes this time. Let's just click on those to change those up. Boom. So let's say we have a river. Now we have an end to that river. Let's add some water to be what would be a coastline, and then add the coastline with the freeform coast tool. So you can see that where that river is, the coast tool will put an outlet. And if it's over here, it'll make that outlet. And if you're, actually, let's say it's connected up like that. And you can see here, it'll try to connect that as well. And so we end up with the coastline now actually puts in the correct river things. So if we go back to the river and just click on that tile, it will then link up. And you can then have the rivers connect automatically without you having to go into the specific pieces to choose the one you need and add it in. And so far this works in pretty much all directions so far as I've tested. If there's any bugs, please let me know. Let's just fill this in. So say we have the coastline there. Let's go back to the river. So we'll do it the other way. We'll connect a river towards the coast. And you can see it'll show you here that it wants to connect. Now, it doesn't edit the existing sprites on the map, so the existing coastline won't change until you tell it to. So we can click on those, sort of make that look a little bit nicer. Maybe that's how that connects. Now, this river probably would never exist, but hey, it's fantasy, make it what you want. So again, we go back to freeform coast tool, we just click on that, and it will connect it up to the river automatically. Ooh, and we can clean up that corner too. So yeah, that should make your map drawing a little bit easier. Hopefully speed up the process of you making a map. So again, like you can make up something like this pretty quickly, where you just draw the rivers, draw the coastlines, and everything will now link up. And then so the last change I have to talk about is just a few UI changes. So on the enemy screen, you can see before I knew how to actually use the scroll bars, I had put in a little button that would generate the top and bottom that you could click to scroll through the list. But now we just have scroll bars to replace all of those on the menu. So you can actually use your scroll wheel now, see all the things you've put in, and scroll bar. So that is true of the NPCs, the characters, the campaign map menus, all that. Now I don't have enough items in any of those to actually have the scroll bar show up. But if you do end up getting a lot of those in, the scroll bar will show up, allowing you to go through. And the same is also true of the action editor. So if we go to add an action, and we open up, like the piercing, we have scroll bar there. With these ones, I sped up the scroll bar so that it works a little bit faster as a UI change. Before, I didn't realize the default sensitivity could be changed. It's set to 1 by default, and this thing scrolls at a snail's pace at that. But now if we use the scroll wheel, it scrolls nice and quickly, so you can go through these menus a lot faster. So yeah, that's all I have for you with this update. This will be live on Steam by the time this video comes out. So hopefully you like those changes. And again, if you would like to suggest changes to the program, additions you'd like to see, please let me know. You can do that through Steam discussions or if you join my Patreon. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I hope you support my game in the future.